Talking about the Big Leap all month, and we've been using the fabulous book, The Big Leap, from Gay Hendricks, which is sold out of the Book Nook, so if you don't have it, please go get it. It's really extraordinary. And of course, the Big Leap is answering the call. And that call is so profoundly the way in which we show up in the world as love and light. However that is. And sometimes it's a call into a new career or a business or a way of sharing our gifts and talents through art. It's also a call to relationship or having children or deciding actually to allow love in. It's as much a call to flow and to the expression of our spiritual truth as it is a call to something in specific and or particular. Love calls us to our deepest selves, our deepest, fullest, richest selves. And I think it was Cynthia James who talked about, actually it was Karen who 2 weeks ago, she talked about the quote, "We're not here to be happy. We are here to be fulfilled. We are here to give our gift." And to do that is to answer the call to love. What we discover is happiness is a pale shadow to the joy that comes with a life that is rich and meaningful. We are here to become more authentically ourselves and more fully engaged with life, expressing an alignment with our truest, deepest selves. As I said, the byproduct of that is happiness along the way. More importantly, it is a deep and profound joy that recognizes that we are so fully engaged that we are becoming and being the love and the light in the world. So today I'm talking about making the leap, taking that leap. What does that look like and feel like, and how do we soar with love? Not purely with the idea that we're trying to make something, accomplish something, do something, or even necessarily be materially successful, although that is often a part of the byproduct. Taking the leap, soaring with love. So how do you make the leap? How do you take that leap? Well, the first thing we want to talk about is going for it. You actually have to go for it. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the gremlins that we discover along the way. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what being in the middle of the leap feels like. Because it's usually in the starting and in the being in the middle of the leap that we tend to hold back or pull back. So going for it. So I thought I would use traveling as a metaphor because there's lots of different ways in which we can travel. And yet there is something really important if you decide to go traveling. You have to decide where you're going, right? If you're going to travel to Europe or you're going to travel to the Grand Canyon, that requires very different things, doesn't it? You can drive to the Grand Canyon, but you can't actually drive to Europe. So we have to know where we're going. We have to have a destination. Now, the destination might be a particular form. I am going to raft the Colorado River. Right? That's pretty specific. Or it might be a quality of experience. I'm going to go to Paris for a week, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to just let spirit move me. But do you see, I still have some sense of that I'm actually going to Paris and not to the Grand Canyon. So the first thing we have to do in taking the leap is we do, in fact, have to pick a destination. That destination, as I said, can be very specific. And how we make it specific is we decide what's important to us. We have to decide what our values are and what we're trying to accomplish and what's important to us. And so we decide something very specific. For me, when I moved to Dallas, that was a specific location, that was a specific destination idea. I wanted help in raising a baby. So I called up my mother and said, "Can I come live with you?" She happened to live here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Right? But my destination was help with raising a baby. Brought me to Dallas. Very, very specific. On the other hand, we can also, as I said, this type of experience, which is really about the quality of the experience or the end result that we are wanting to leap into. And this allows for a lot of flexibility with form. So calling out my mother, "Can I live with you?" Do you see there's not a lot of flexibility in that form? It's yes or no, right? "I'm going to come live with you because I need help. I want you to be a part of raising my son." But we can also have a very different experience where we're thinking about the quality. So when I went on my sabbatical a couple of years ago, I went to Denmark, and I had rented this little house for 3 weeks, this little tiny house in a little tiny fishing village, where I was going to sit on the little tiny back porch. Are we getting the picture? A little tiny house in a little tiny village on a little tiny back porch, and I was going to sit there for 3 weeks, and I was going to start learning how to write a book. And I envisioned myself walking along the beach and walking along the little river area that they had and coming back and sitting on my little porch starting to write. And I had this whole idea about how that was going to look, and I was all excited. So I went on my sabbatical. I got to visit my family a little bit. I got on the train, and I took the train up to Denmark. I got off at the little station. I dragged my suitcase through the little town, found the door, got into the little place. And it was not what I had expected. It was, yes, admittedly very little, and it was also very old. And within about a 4-hour period of time, I was coughing and sneezing. It was so musty and so mildewy. I ended up calling the company through which I had gotten the place and said, "I can't stay here," and I can't stay here. I couldn't sleep in the bed. I was completely stuffed in I had to leave. I did get to have my walk along the river and walk around a little bit, and it was really great. And I tried to organize for 2 days. I tried to organize getting a refund and getting another place. And the answer to that was no, no, and hell no. And so I got to call Karen and say, "I can't stay here. I don't know what to do." And she said, "Just find a place and go. It doesn't matter." Because this was also lovely, fit the budget, It was a little tiny house in a little tiny village, right? Fit in the budget. So it was the middle of the summer. I ended up finding a place, a student apartment in the university area of downtown Copenhagen. 4th floor, beautiful view, very expensive. But it was really all that was there. And I was like, okay. So I got on the train and I went to Copenhagen. And it was completely different than I had expected, because now I'm in the city, in an apartment. I had a blast. I had the best time, right? Because what I focused on was the quality of experience that I wanted. I wanted 3 or 4 hours every day to write, and things to do that would fill me so that the next morning I could sit back down and write again. So I started renting a bike every day. I rode all around. I found I found the deer, and I found the marshes, and of course I found the little shopping areas and all that good stuff. And I had a blast because I focused on the quality of experience. Do you see? I could have said many other things about the form not being what I had anticipated. So specific and quality, these two things are constantly in a dance with each other. And learning to dance these two things together really is part of the making the leap, taking the leap, allowing which one of these things is going to be called for as we are deciding that we are going to take this leap. Now, the second thing I want to say about going for it is that we must educate ourselves. We cannot leap blind. So let me say that when we talk about trusting spirit and we talk about going for it, knowing that the universe supports you, this does not mean we check our intelligence at the door. Okay? It does not mean that. It means that we don't try to overanalyze and figure out every step of how along the way, but we must educate ourselves. So I've been educating myself for 35 years in the growth of spiritual community. And every time something is a little bit different, every time it feels like we want to do something, we listen to spirit, we pick specific things, we look at the quality of the experience that we want to have. But I also educate myself about what's going on, what's possible, what's not possible, what are other people doing, how might some of these things pan out. We don't leap blind. I can't tell you how many times I watch people leap blind, thinking that educating yourself is somehow overly analyzing or intellectualizing. No, overly analyzing and intellectualizing is deciding every single step of the way as it has to be and making sure that we have all of that in place before we leap. That is overanalyzing. So we have to educate ourselves. And because we have educated ourselves, both in the area or the arena that we're leaping in, and we have educated ourselves spiritually, do you know what this gives us when we go for it? Trust. It means we can trust the universe and we can trust ourselves. These two things, again, these two things are a dance. We're dancing with these two things. We're trusting the universe. We're trusting the law. We're trusting that we understand how to set a declaration, do the spiritual work, be in alignment with spiritual truth, allow the law to unfold. And we trust ourselves that we will stay dedicated and focused and committed, that we will do the spiritual work and we will do the legwork, and we have some idea of at least where to start. Do you see? When we are educating ourselves in all of this, we move with trust. And we begin to release any anxiety or concern about how it's happening and whether or not it's working out. Because we have this deep and profound trust. I want to read this excerpt. This is excerpts from Ernest Holmes. He says this: faith resolves itself into a mental attitude toward life. Faith resolves itself into a mental attitude toward life. It is a certain positive and affirmative way of thinking. The highest attitude of mind from which all else springs is one of perfect calm and absolute trust. This is the attitude we should have. What we need to know is the truth. This does not mean that we need not be active. Of course we shall be active, but we need not compel things to happen. This is the attitude we should assume, that life holds nothing against us. It desires only our good. It wants us to be well, happy, and successful, but it wants us to play the game of life the way it's supposed to be played, in unity and cooperation with others. And then this is Ernest Holmes writing in the first person. To become alive and build the greatest lives, we must become something more, something worthwhile. There is not a day in my life that goes by that I do not take the time to unify myself in my consciousness with big things. To think I am one with all activities, all possibilities, all commerce, all art, beauty, science, and nature. And I just feel the thought reaching out and encompassing the largest fields of activity in the world. Now I am one with the infinite stars in the heavens. And that is to touch the universal. Do you see, I have a part and the universal has a part. I have a part to do that imagining, to do that work, to imagine the end result, to imagine the qualities, to educate myself, to be a part of what's going on. That's my part. And then it is the universe's part, the law's part, to support, to outpicture, to take that and to make it unfold. And for that, when we are living in both of those places, do you see we are in extraordinary trust? The opportunity for us to go for it, to really, really go for it. There's a wonderful quote that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. It actually is attributed to Goethe, and only the last section of it is actually written by Goethe. This quote is from William Hutchison Murray. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidences, meetings, and material assistance, which no one could have dreamed would have come our way. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. Do you see, to go for it in making the leap, as we have understood where we're going and what the quality is, and we've educated ourselves about both the spiritual and physical aspects of how this unfolds, that trust allows us to move forward. And serendipitous things happen. We draw in all kinds of things that we couldn't possibly have figured out had we tried to analyze and figure out every step of the way. Will you get to Paris if you don't get on the plane? No. Will you raft the Colorado River if we don't get on the raft? No. At some point, taking the leap, making the leap means we have to leap. We actually have to go for it. And we have to go for it in spite of our trepidations and our unknowingness and our not having everything figured out, right? So in taking the leap into our lives is a tremendous amount of courage, but it's also bold. So boldly go into your love. Boldly go into your marriage or your relationship. Boldly go into a new idea or a new creative endeavor. Boldly go into your spiritual growth. I am going to experience my oneness. Be bold about the claim and the declaration. What is the destination? What is the quality of life experience? And as we act, providence acts with us. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, of course the dice of God is always loaded. It's loaded in your favor. And how do we know that? Because the universe is always unfolding toward life. It's always unfolding towards this constant opening of this verdant life, this teeming life. Whether do you know that there's life living in the ice in Antarctica? In the ice. You go down to the trenches at the bottom of the ocean, whatever it is, however many fathoms, whatever, it's ridiculous how deep it is, right? In the vents, the sulfur vents that are coming out from the magma of the middle of the planet, the heart of the planet itself, and they said nothing can live there. Ha ha ha. They've discovered all kinds of life. There's life everywhere. And given non-human interference, it does beautifully in living, right? Even if you go out into the forest and you say, oh God, the tree has died. What does it do? It falls over so that new trees can grow. makes light so a new tree can grow up. The tree itself becomes what they call a nurse log. Little seedlings grow out of the tree. It nourishes it. And and the forest is forever and continually renewed. Life is always for life. It is always for life. And that life is the love and the light of the universe itself seeking to express. And that's what's calling us. That's what we're rising into, and that's what we're being asked to leap into. And it can be a little scary, as we know, as we've read, and as Karen talked about, we limit ourselves because it gets a little scary. We want to be safe, we want to be comfortable, we want to know how it's all going to turn out. Actually, the truth is we don't want to know. We actually want somebody to give us a guarantee, don't we? Well, why not? And we can do spiritual damage to ourselves if we believe that using our spiritual tools is a guarantee that it will work out. It's not. It's a guarantee that you will be fully alive while you're leaping. Do you see the difference? Because if we're guaranteed, we're not leaping. We're in our comfort zone. We're in our safe space. If we know how it's all going to work out, we haven't leapt. We're right in the status quo of our lives. And if we're good with that, great. If we're good with that. But maybe there is a place in your life, one small aspect of our lives, that is calling us to a deeper, richer, fuller love. A deeper, richer, fuller life. A deeper, richer, fuller givingness of ourselves into the world, whether it is in work or service, raising children, growing a garden, saving the world. So we decide to leap and we go for it. We just leap off the edge. We've educated ourselves. We're going to trust the universe. And then, oh my God, what happens? Ah! What were we thinking? What was I thinking? Why did I ever think this was going to work out? Right? We're confronted with the gremlins along the way. So here's the deal. We can think of the gremlins along the way as canceled flights or detours. Right? Because we're traveling. We're our traveling metaphor. We're going to either, and how many of us have had a canceled flight? Yeah. Does that mean the universe didn't want you to go? No, of course not. And thank God they canceled the flight, because the plane was either malfunctioning or there was a weather that you did not want to be flying in. Right? But we can get ourselves all worked up about canceled flights. Canceled flights in our lives look like no's. They look like closed doors, false starts, things that didn't work out the way that we thought that they would. And we ascribe meaning to them. And we say, oh, that must mean I'm not supposed to do it. Or, I didn't do it right. Or, there's something wrong with my consciousness. It could be that it's just the canceled flight. And it could be that that canceled flight kept you safe and alive because you didn't go through that weather. And the airplane was fixed before it flew the next time. Do you see? So when we come along with these gremlins, we really want to recognize that this is an opportunity for us to put our spiritual practice to bear. Actually, it's actually even much simpler than that. It's not even our spiritual practice. When we're confronted with canceled flights, really, what's called for is an attitude check, right? It's an attitude check. Are we going to stand at the counter, yell at the flight attendant, demand our flights, why couldn't you get me on the next flight? Or are we going to just go, oh, okay, well, maybe something was going on. There was a reason this flight was canceled, and so we're just going to have a good attitude about it. So when we have things that are canceled flights, no's, closed doors, false starts, didn't work, that's the time to really check our attitude. Do we have a positive attitude? Are we having a positive expectancy? Are we able to roll with the punches and go with the flow? Because if you are leaping, I promise you there will be some. Because if you had everything perfectly down and already knew everything and how everything was going to go, it wouldn't be a leap. Do you see? Leaping by its very nature means I am out on the skinny branches. I'm going to trust love even though all of my other relationships were not so good. I'm going to open my heart. I'm going to be out here. I'm going to, by God, I'm going to be that, no matter how scary it is. And it doesn't work out. The relationship doesn't pan out. Does that mean now I shouldn't love? No, of course not. Do you see? So, our canceled flights on the one hand, the other hand is our detours. There's lots of them, aren't they? We're driving to the Grand Canyon. You just can't even get out of Dallas without a detour, right? Here, every highway in the world is under construction. Actually, the truth is not only every highway in the world is under construction, so is every airport. I've gotten lost in the last 3 airports I've driven around because of the construction. It's truly astonishing. There are detours everywhere. And so what do, right? What are the detours that we can come up with when we are taking a leap? The first one, the biggest detour I think that we come to is our own sense of discomfort. Actually, I'm not even sure that's a detour. That just might be a stop sign. And then we sit there because we're uncomfortable. I don't know how to do this. The first time Ryan said, we're going to do some videos, and I want you to do this, this, and this, and we're going to, and I was like, When I have a whole history of cameras, with my dad. It's not a pretty story. It's not a pretty story. And I've done a lot of work to let go of it and get over it. But when he started pointing that video camera at me, we're going to do these things, and I'm like, oh, I was so uncomfortable I wanted to run out of the room. That would have been not just a detour, but a end of trip. That would have been an end of trip. So we have to be aware that we are going to be uncomfortable. We are going to be asked to do things that we don't know how to do, that we don't like to do, that we are uncertain about, and it's going to take us into whole new arenas. We are, after all, leaping into something very different. The next detour is the doubt, anxiety, fear detour. The doubt, anxiety, fear detour. And I know in our book, The Big Leap, it talks a lot about fear, and I think a lot of people say, well, I'm not afraid. I don't really run my life by fear, but we could use the words doubt and anxiety and check in, right? And when we have doubt, we have the need to figure it out. We have the need to have every piece of it mapped out. So again, we've been moving a lot into the digital age in the last 5 years, and I have to tell you that has been a challenge for me. And Ryan and I just had this conversation about how 2 or 3 years ago when we started talking about putting classes online and having people online in the classroom, I was like, I'm not touching those machines. I am the teacher. We have to have support, tech support. Somebody has to be there running the machine because I'm not doing it. I don't know how to do it. That is just overwhelming to me. I got hugely anxious. Actually, I had so much anxiety, I actually canceled a class because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I was like, no, I can't do it. And I was afraid, right? I was afraid that I'm really good at teaching, but that would really change everything. And so I have been, what did we say? Educate ourselves. I've been educating myself for the last 3 or 4 years to make friends with all this technology. And so I'm proud to say that I'm teaching a class right now, which some of you are in, which is super cool. I'm teaching a class right now in which I am running my own technology from the front of the room. I know! And the reason we had this conversation is because Ryan said to me, do you remember 3 years ago? You were panicked and didn't want to touch any of this. Do you see? That's a part of the process of leaping. These things are going to show up. I don't know how to raise a child. I don't know how to do a new art form. I don't know how to do this thing that I'm being called to. It feels so big and it feels so unknown. Yeah. That's how you know it's a leap. Right? That's how you know it's a leap. And so we attract people who support us because isn't that what William Hutchinson said? All sorts of things occur that one would not otherwise have known. A whole stream of events, people, materials, all kinds of things are come our way. And how do we move before they've come? Trust, right? Isn't that what we talked about? Trust in ourselves and in the universe that they do and will show up, and that we do and will grow and learn, and we can continually be practicing. A big detour for me that has been the case in my life, particularly in this upper limiting thing that's in our book that Karen talked so much about, is I don't believe it's possible, and I can't imagine what it would look like. I will not ask for a show of hands of how many people have said that to themselves. I don't believe it's possible. And even if it's just casual, I can't even imagine how that's going to work. I can't even imagine it. Right. And when we can't imagine it, do you see we can't make that space? We're not actually picking the destination or exploring the qualities of what our leap will look like, what the end result is we are going for. And these are ways in which we upper limit ourselves. If we can't imagine something beyond what we're doing right now, or what we've had in the past, I really can't imagine a relationship being any better than I've ever had. I really can't believe that my business can be that successful. I really can't believe that I actually have that much to offer, or I have that much to give. I can't imagine how this is going to unfold. You see, all of those are upper limit statements. And when we do that, we're keeping ourselves in our comfort zone. And finally, I'm hoping that you don't do this, but some of us do this. One of the gremlins that comes along the way is we attract people, or we share with people who mirror back to us our own disbelief. Right? You're going to do what? What were you thinking? How are you going to do that? Well, how's that going to work out? Have you really thought this through? Did you read the newspaper the other day about what happened? Are you kidding me? You're going to do... And why is it that we insist on thinking that if we will simply tell them our leap with enough excitement and enthusiasm that they're going to get on board? Have they given you any evidence in the past that they will? No. Holy moly. So we play so many spiritual games with ourselves. So when we are not willing to look at our own gremlins, our fear, our anxiety, our doubt, and we're not willing to do the spiritual work that's required, we project it out there and we attract people who will tell us what we ourselves are thinking. And they will reinforce for us our fear and our anxiety and our doubt. And then we say, see, it's too much. I can't do it. It's too much. I won't be able to handle it, whatever that is. These are our gremlins. And being clear about it and paying attention to it and not being afraid, this is just like part of the process. It's like saying, okay, I'm gonna garden. I know not everybody's a gardener, but I love gardening, so you have to just bear with me. I'm gonna garden, and I'm gonna grow carrots. And I'm gonna put a whole bunch of little seeds. You make a little row, you make a little depression, you get your little carrot seeds, and you put a whole bunch of seeds in there. Way more than you need. They start to grow. They start to sprout. What do? You have to go out there and you have to thin them. You have to take seeds. You have to take perfectly good carrots out of the row so that the other ones can grow, right? Now, if we know that that's something that has to happen, we do not have to feel bad about the carrots that we're weeding out, who did not get to fully express their lives in full carrothood. You think I'm jesting? When I first really got deeply involved in metaphysics and the science of mind, and I did that, and I thought, oh my God, there's life right there, and I'm ripping it out. How is that possible? Because it's just part of the process, right? And you have a blackberry bramble that's taking over your backyard because the blackberries will actually grow better if you prune the bush. If we know that these things are needed and required, if we know that these things are going to happen, and we know, of course, the blackberry bush is actually going to try to take over the backyard, right? So we don't have to get wigged out about it. We just have to go out there and trim it on a regular basis, over and over and over and over and over again, right? Because it is in the nature of blackberry brambles to take over the yard. It is in the nature of leaping to have gremlins, because you are moving outside of anything that you have been comfortable with in the past. So we have to become comfortable with our discomfort. Welcome it. See that it is telling us that we are, in fact, in the leap. Being in the leap. So what does being in the leap actually feel like? What does starting to soar actually feel like? It feels like we've let go of the one trapeze and we have not yet grabbed a hold of the next one. That's what it feels like. And how many of us swing on this trapeze because we haven't yet grabbed this one? What would happen if we actually grabbed both trapezes at the same time? We would hurt ourselves. We would be stuck. We would hang there in the middle going, uh-oh. Between trapezes. We can't go backward and we can't go forward. And this is a part of the process. There will come a time in making the leap where it will feel like to you nothing is working. Nothing is working because the old is the old trapeze that you're trying to let go of, and the new has not yet arrived. And this place of not working, things not working, I know it sounds so weird, but you have to actually celebrate it. Because it actually means you've leapt. You're in the middle of leaping. And things are kind of a little weird. You're like floating in the air in between the two trapezes. And it can get a little uncomfortable because the old stuff doesn't work anymore. Celebrate that. That means the new is pulling you. It's pulling you so strongly that you are actually letting go of the old. When we are in this place, this is the place where we have to dig deeper into ourselves and deeper into spirit. Actually, wait, isn't that the same thing? Isn't that the same thing? Right? Deeper into our spiritual practice, deeper into our spiritual knowing, and deeper into the application of that spiritual practice and knowing, because we know who we are. We are, in fact, that love and light seeking to rise out into the world, seeking to be expressed in the world. And so we go for it. We dig even deeper, which means we have to trust more and practice more. We have to be more diligent with our consciousness, with our awareness, with how we're thinking about things and talking about things. We have to become utterly dedicated to focusing on the trapeze that is coming towards us than trying to grab back to the old one. Right? In this place of leap is the most profound opportunity for really, really powerful spiritual application and practice. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means it's an opportunity to practice. So what we're practicing is trust in spirit and the law and ourselves. We're practicing paying attention to our attitude, having sustained effort, having the strength of our conviction and our fire for that the love is taking us someplace. The last thing I want to say about this being in the leap, taking the leap and being in the leap, is that I think sometimes our spirituality and our teachings and our culture really lead us astray because we think it's going to happen instantly. Well, I did my spiritual mind treatment and I opened my business. Why am I not a millionaire? Right? Whatever that is. And so this thing about instant has to happen instantly. And even when we educate ourselves and we build a plan and we know the quality of life experience and it starts unfolding, and sometimes the form manifests and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it's a closed door, and there's all this now being on the journey, right? Maybe you go to Paris and the museum isn't open because you didn't realize it was closed on Mondays. Or, right, it doesn't, everything... It's that process of unfolding. I want to tell you the best piece of advice I ever got when I first got into the ministry by a lovely man, Reverend Dr. Fred Vogt. He built Mile High Church, which is now our biggest community in Denver. And he was there for many years. He's passed away now. He was a dear friend and a mentor of mine. And one of the very first conversations I ever had with him, I will never forget. I was in my last year of ministerial school. I was very young, and I was prepared to make a leap. And I was so scared, I can't say how scared I was on a Sunday morning. And he said this to me, which some of you have heard me say. I've said it to you too. It's not just true about ministry. It's true about any leap that you are prepared to make in your life. Deep and profound leap of greater contribution, deeper love, richer experience. He said this, Petra, you can do so much less in 1 year than you hoped. But you can do so much more in 10 years than you ever dreamed was possible. Go for the 10 years. Let the one take care of itself. That has stood me in such good stead, which is why I'm still in the ministry so many years later, and I'm still here in Dallas so many years later. I don't think in terms of a year. I think in terms of 5 and 10. Where do we want to be? Where are we going? And it is that exact quote. Things start to snowball, they start to roll, unexpected serendipities, coincidences, all of that begins to show up because we are committed not only to leaping, but staying leapt. Is that? I'm sure that's the correct English. Staying in the leap, right? It's not shrinking back when the gremlins start appearing. And it doesn't necessarily come in the year that we thought it might. But I promise you that in the long run, so much more will be available to you for you to give the love and the light that you are. So much more comes into being if we're willing to look for the long haul. I call that sustained effort. Soaring with love and living in the leap, making the leap, taking the leap, being in the leap takes sustained effort, spiritually, personally, emotionally, physically, intellectually, every way we can think of it. So I want to close with this idea that I wish I really looked for where this comes from. I know it comes out of the Buddhist tradition. I don't actually know what the attribution is. I don't know who to credit it for. But there is an idea in the Buddhist tradition that the path rises to meet your foot as you step out on the path. Do you see? In the act of leaping, you actually call the new trapeze into being. Take a breath. Go within. Inviting you to close your eyes. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And so it is.